Hello, I'm Irma Baker. Welcome to our show. Today we're going to look into Celtic legends and lores with a very special guest. We'll be back with her right after this message from Mature Services, our sponsor, with their RSVP program.
RSVP of Summit County has been making a difference in our community since 1972. RSVP volunteers are increasing the quality of life by participating in programs and organizations that provide important services to the community. RSVP matches personal interests and skills with opportunities to serve. If you're interested in adding more meaning to your life and improving the lives of others, please call 330-253-4597, extension 166.
Welcome back. Our guest today is Regina Geither, and she is an author of actually books about Ireland, but Ireland in a way that maybe we don't quite know it. When we think of Ireland, we think of St. Patrick and wearing of the green and the Blarney Stones and things like that. But Regina has done a lot of research on it, and she is using many more of the legends and the lore of Ireland. Regina, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you with us.
Hi, thanks for having me, Irma.
Well, I was really fascinated with the stories and the legends that you weave into your writing. And first of all, why? Why do you write about these Celtic legends and lore?
I think it started with my grandfather. I am a wee bit Irish, not 100%, but my grandfather is Irish and Scottish, along with a little bit of German too. And it goes back to my childhood, going to his house in the summertime and sitting on the back porch, and he would tell us stories, all kinds of stories. And it wasn't just about when he was a young child, but he would make up stories. And I think that kind of inspired me, and I've always found the Celtic legends to be really, really fascinating, and the more I researched them, the more I was hooked.
How did you go to the, how did you come up with the idea of writing for teenagers?
I think it's a little bit, I would rather be 16 than 40-something. So it's a good escape for me, and YA is very popular right now. It's been for a number of years, and I was really excited about trying my hand at it. Before writing YA, I was kind of searching for my genre. When you first start writing, you're not really sure what genre you're good at or what would interest you, and I found that I was reading YA, and you need to write what you love, and I really do love reading and writing YA.
When you say YA, you're talking about young adult, fiction for young adult, or even nonfiction for young adult, but it's for that category, which is primarily the teenage category,
It is. It's teens, but I also write for younger children also, but I have a special love for the teenage heart.
And your background is that you are also a teacher, and in fact right now you're teaching teachers.
I am. Right now I'm an educational coach, and I go in and teach STEM or science to the teachers, help them implement hands-on experiments for the kids and really get children interested in science and technology.
Well, isn't that kind of a far cry from the legends and the literary aspects of your writing?
It is, but if you think about it, everything that people traditionally have thought of as magical or mystical really has a scientific background to it. There's something scientific that eventually will be figured out and can explain what they find mystical.
So does that mean that there may be something scientific, some scientific proof eventually for leprechauns and fairies?
I don't know about that, but I think every legend and lore has a seed of truth in it. And so, for instance, one of the characters in my second book is a Grogak. And a Grogak is like a small little Aboriginal character, half man, half fairy. Well, research has found that there have been smaller humans in the distant past. They've found bones. So even the Hobbit, when we talk about the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbits, there have been found small bones of smaller humans that are maybe 3 feet tall. So there's a seed of truth in every story. Doesn't mean it's 100% true.
What are some of your favorite legends?
Oh, geez, there's so many of them. When I was researching Torrey, it was amazing because I really didn't have to make a lot up. There are a lot of legends from Torrey Island in itself. It's supposedly the kingdom or the home of Baylor the One-Eye. And Baylor the One-Eye was a cyclops. And he was an evil king, and the local people had to fight over him and try to dispose of him in order to live on Torrey Island. So that was a fun one. There's also on Torrey Island the wishing stone and the cursing stone, which is really interesting. They have a little bit of everything.
Oh, you brought pictures of the wishing and cursing. Well, the wishing stone is different from the cursing stone.
It is.
Talk about that cursing stone.
Okay. Well, cursing stone, it goes back to the pagan times of Ireland and that whole area. Before Ireland became Christian, they practiced the pagan ways, and the cursing stone, or if you used it the right way, was a blessing stone, was a stone that the islanders would use to help their intentions become reality. And so actually in 2012 they found a cursing stone that washed up on one of the islands in Ireland. And it's basically a round stone, and sometimes they would carve on the top of it a cross or some other kind of character, and they would turn it. And if they turned it clockwise, that was for good intentions or prayers. But if they turned it counterclockwise or anti-clockwise, then that was for a curse.
I think you brought along a picture, didn't you,
I
of one
did.
with the actual curse carved into
I did.
the stone.
And this one is actually in a museum in Ireland. This is a huge stone. It's bigger than a person. It's a tall stone. And the individual that wrote on that cursing stone must have been very angry at someone, because he was cursing a lot of things.
He certainly went into a lot of detail
Oh, yeah.
on that.
For sure.
You've had the opportunity then to go to Ireland and explore some of these spots?
I have not, unfortunately. I am working on that. It's in my plans for the future and years to come. But in place, I have made some friends that live in Ireland and live on Torrey Island, and the computer is a wonderful thing. If you can't be there in person, you can certainly do the research and talk to people that live in the area, and they have given me so much information.
Well, I found it fascinating that you were basing your stories on an actual place, that even though this is fantasy fiction, paranormal fiction, whatever we want to call it, that you were building it into a locale that actually exists. And you brought us this beautiful map of the actual Torrey Island.
That is actually Torrey Island, yes. It's in Donegal County, Ireland, which is way up north, almost on the Scottish border. And it's, I wouldn't say a remote island, but it's still a little bit removed, and there's a lot of the old history there, and they still speak Gaelic up there. And it's becoming more touristy, but they're still hanging on to their old myths and legends, and that's what I found was fascinating. When I was looking for the setting of my book, I knew I wanted to base it in Ireland, because to me, Ireland has always been very mystical, and it's a fairy tale setting. And when I started doing the research, everything was right there. Torrey Island had all the myths I was looking for, so I just embellished and added a little bit to it. But they have a lot there that I could already use.
Well, you use so many different fantastical, if I can use that term, with the fantastical things. Things like auras, that whole idea of colors surrounding people.
Right.
Talk a little bit about that.
I've always been fascinated by things that are paranormal or things that are out of the ordinary. And auras, if you think about it, it's actually tied into our Christian beliefs too. When you see a picture of saints, or you see a picture of Jesus, the Son of God, there's always a halo around them. Well, if you think about it, the halo could be likened to an aura. So in my book, Arella, the main character, she begins to see auras, which is the energy coming off of people. So she can tell if somebody is good by the color of their aura, or she can tell if somebody has devious intent by the color of their aura.
Does the aura stay the same? Is somebody always, you know, a red aura or a yellow aura or a green aura?
No, and I personally cannot see auras, but Arella, she sees that the auras change. So she can tell if somebody is becoming, is changing or has different thoughts by the color of their aura at the time.
Have you met people who see auras?
I have not, but I have met a lot of people in my day that can do things and see things that I can't, and I just find that fascinating.
When you were researching the materials for your stories, did you draw on things that you heard from your grandfather?
A little bit. I mean, my grandfather, his stories, I mean, he would tell us stories about when he was a young boy and during the Depression, the things he had to go through, which to now, people nowadays, generation, my own children, and even myself, we couldn't imagine the hardships that people had to grow up with. But then he would also make up stories. So he would tell stories about the Loch Ness Monster and Sasquatch and all of these creatures that, you know, some people believe in, some think are mystical, but it was that type of imagination and that type of thinking that I drew upon. And I just wanted to be a little bit like grandfather.
Well, you mentioned creatures. Are there some wonderful creatures that are showing up in your research?
Oh my goodness, it's a plethora of information when you start looking up Irish mythological creatures. Of course, everybody's familiar with the leprechaun, but there are things like the Doulahan. The Doulahan is a headless horseman, and that's where we get our legend of Sleepy Hollow. Not many people know that, but it's an old Irish mythological creature that comes by, and he has, you know, he's holding his head in his hand and he's searching for another head. So that's one. Let's see, the Banshee. The Banshee is a screaming ghost, and she's a harbinger of death. If somebody hears it, that means that someone they know, or even themselves, they're close to death. So there's all kinds of things. I'm trying to think too of the different, Sealies. Sealies are seal people. So the Irish believe that there are people that they live in the sea and they are seals, but they can come up on land and turn into people. And there are stories of old fishermen who have married beautiful women thinking that they would make great wives, but if those women get too close to the sea, they go back to their life as a seal.
Is that kind of the basis for the legends about mermaids?
Yes, actually that's where we do get some of the legends of mermaids. It's just so funny. A lot of the things that we have in our paranormal world where we read about ghosts and spooky things, it actually comes from a lot of the Celtic legends.
That is fascinating. Of course, our part of Ohio, we're not that far from areas that were set by Irish and Scottish settlers, particularly if you go down more towards West Virginia and that area.
Absolutely. And the legend of the ghost light, the will-o-wisp, that is actually going to be one of my books for younger readers that's coming up. But a will-o-wisp is a ghost light, and we have legends down in southern Ohio and West Virginia and other parts of the country also of ghost lights that suddenly appear, and you think that you can get close to it, and as you approach it, it goes farther and farther away, but it doesn't disappear until you think you're almost on it, and then it's gone. And that's what a will-o-wisp is. In Ireland, the legend of the will-o-wisp is if you go to a swamp or a wooded area and you see this light, if you follow it, it'll lure you deeper and deeper into the bogs and into the forest until you get lost, and then it'll totally disappear and you're left there.
Oh my, that's kind of the thing the kind of story that you tell a little kid when you're trying to make him behave.
Exactly. I think a lot of these stories have that.
Well, you mentioned a little while ago that some of these legends and myths and lore are tied in with both the pagan and the Christian beliefs. And I'm thinking one of those would be the Tau cross.
It would be. Actually, the Tau cross was the first Christian cross. But if you think about the Irish cross, where it's our traditional cross but with a circle, that has pagan as well as Christian roots. The round part is from the sun cross, when people used to worship the sun. And then as the Christian church came in and tried to convert people, they took what the pagans believed in and tried to incorporate it into their Christian beliefs, so that it wasn't that far of a jump for them to move into Christianity from the paganism.
Well, that seems to have given us a lot of very rich legends, and kind of, it's fascinating to see what people believe and how people believe. We think of the Egyptians and those with their hieroglyphics and the pagan gods and goddesses and such, but yet that's not that far removed from our own backgrounds with our Northern European or Central European backgrounds.
Absolutely. And if you look at most symbols today, for instance, the triquetra, which is the Celtic knot, and it has the 3 knots in it. Well, originally, the 3 stood for the maid, the matron, and the crone, the 3 stages of the woman. Well, when the Christian church came in, they wanted to try to pull the pagan away from what the people believed, but yet try to incorporate it, so they made it the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So some of these symbols today that we still use, and we all believe that they're originally Christian symbols, they really were pagan, but they were transformed.
They were kind of adapted into
Absolutely.
the Christian tradition,
Absolutely.
which would then make sense to the people moving along into that transition.
Absolutely.
What has all this research done to you personally?